Hi everyone, welcome to Lunchtime Live. Is anybody there yet? I do not see anyone yet. We're a couple minutes early. Hi Joyce, how does it sound? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Welcome everybody. Welcome to Lunchtime Live. It's a beautiful day here in the estuary. My name is Robin. I work for State Park. I'm the volunteer coordinator here, and I also work for SWIA, our nonprofit, as a research assistant. And today we're talking about the yellow-crowned night heron. I'm gonna wait for that helicopter to go over. They always get pretty noisy here about noon. Hi, Catherine. So I had hoped today, hi Mark, that we would see one of our yellow-crowned night heron. They are typically right at the bridge. There's a big tree kind of sticking up out of the tide channel, and they like to sit there. And the other place that we see them is nesting in the big Torrey pines at the Blue Apartments, right at the top of the North McCoy Trail. So, hi Mark, hi John. So, anyway, I guess we're not gonna get to see any, but I'm leaving the camera here on the tide channel. Maybe something will show up. So, yellow-crowned night heron. They are in the family Ardeidae, which is the same family as the egrets, the snowy egret, the great white egret. It's the same family as the bitterns, and of course all of the other herons. I'm gonna start by showing you what these guys look like. Hi Omar. Here is the yellow crown, and as you can see, they're pretty big birds. They're about 2 feet tall, and these birds, the female is smaller. Like when you're talking about raptors, the females are always larger, but in herons they're smaller. They're this beautiful sort of a lavender gray colored feathers. Their heads are kind of big in proportion to the rest of their body. They have these big, powerful, fishing black beaks. This is like a white patch on their cheek, and then they have the yellow plume, hence the name yellow-crowned night heron. They have these sort of red eyes, and their legs are pretty cool because they're yellow, but when they're courting, they turn pink, which I really like. And let me show you what they look like as juveniles. Hi, Anne. Hi, DJ. This is what they look like as a juvenile. And I got this picture from Faith Barton. She's a young photographer that takes pictures here at the estuary. And this little guy is up in the Torrey pines. I'll show you another cool picture in a minute. So, you know, obviously when they're full grown, you can tell the difference between the night herons. We have 2 night herons in North America. One is the yellow crown and one is the black crown. And, you know, it's fairly easy when they're full grown, but when they're babies and they're just brown birds, the way that you tell the difference is the black crowned night herons are more hunched over, and these guys are more upright in stature. They also have longer legs, so if you see them fly, The yellow crown, you're going to see the legs out behind the tail feathers, but the black crowns, you won't see their legs at all. So that's a good way to tell the difference. These guys showed up here after Hurricane Katrina, and they weren't really here before that. So they do migrate, but once they're here, they kind of, you know, sometimes they just hang out. And what they need is what we have. Plenty of crabs to eat, good weather, and trees really close to the water, big tall trees. So you know, you can pretty much see ours in the tide channels, pretty close to the estuary, and up in those tall Torrey pines right by the blue apartments. So their behavior is, they're considered crepuscular and nocturnal. So you're gonna see them early morning, late evening, and you could see them at night. Except for that it's night and you can't see them. But they're pretty tolerant of human activity, which is different than the other herons. The other herons spook a lot easier, but these guys you can really watch. The other thing that's going to influence whether or not you see them is the tides. And apparently they don't like the tide quite this low, and they don't usually like it really high because they're wading birds. So when you see them, they're kind of like something out of the wax museum. They're usually really still, and they're stalking some kind of prey. You'll see them doing it by themselves. They don't they don't hunt in groups with each other. They don't hunt with other species. They are by themselves hunting, and they stalk their prey. They're visual hunters. So they take that really strong beak and they either spear their food and then carry it to shore to break it apart, and then they swallow the body first and then the legs, or they might just swallow it whole to start with. And what they like to eat is any kind of crustacean, particularly crabs, and they'll pretty much eat anything. So if a lizard goes by, they're going to eat it. Or a mouse, they'll eat a mouse. They'll eat, you know, baby birds. You know, I'm sure you've seen our great white egrets, and they go up by the estuary, or you'll see them at the ranches, and they are hunting lizards. Now, the yellow-crowned night heron doesn't go really very far up on land, although I did see one sitting on a telephone wire once, which was bizarre. Mostly you're going to see them hunting in the water, and if they catch a lizard, it's because it was really close to the bank. So breeding. Breeding season for all of our birds is pretty much considered to be March. And it starts with courtship. And these guys are kind of like that Jimi Hendrix song, "Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky." They point their beak up to the sky, and, you know, they will make a call, and they kind of puff up their feathers, and then the female will respond in the same manner. And once they bond, they are monogamous, which means that they are mated for life. And they're kind of a cute couple in the sense that they will sort of, you know, take their beaks and groom each other a little bit, and they'll touch beaks, and you see them call to each other. And then once they decide to nest, and, you know, they do, again, nest in those tall Torrey pines. Once they decide to nest, it'll begin with the male bringing a stick. And then as part of their pair bonding, they build the nest together. And you won't see them on the ground picking up sticks. Sometimes you'll see them flying with a stick, but usually they pick the sticks out of the trees, and they build the nest together, and they sit on the nest and guard it, and they're looking, they kind of sit back to back facing opposite directions, and that's how they guard their nest. Now these big nests, most birds with really big nests, they try to come back to that nest and just refurbish it year after year, whereas the small birds like songbirds, they just start over. So you may be able to see the nests at any time, even not during nesting season. So the eggs, they usually have about they lay about 4 eggs that are bluish green, and as the babies hatch, they're atricial, and you guys probably remember atricial means that they are born helpless, so their eyes don't even open until the next day, and they just have little downy feathers, and it takes them about 3 years really before they look like an adult. So when they're babies, I don't know if it's because they're just, really aggressive about eating, or if they get too big for their nest or what, but every year they shove each other out of the nest. And the egrets do it too. And so every year I'm taking stuff to SeaWorld, or like the general public can take a bird to Project Wildlife, and then I believe they take those birds to SeaWorld. Anyway, I'm going to show you a baby that I took last year because it's a funny picture. Here it is. They look like little pterodactyls, and this isn't even that great of a picture because I wanted to get it when they have their mouth all the way open. Their mouth is bigger than their whole head, so you don't even see their head. They just come at you like a giant mouth, and they try to look really big by spreading their wings, and they just look like little pterodactyls. So when you catch them, you have to throw a blanket over them, because birds with those big, strong beaks, they'll go right for your eye. So you have to be careful, put a blanket over them, put them in a box, take them to Project Wildlife. Now, only do that if they're tiny, because these guys, once they fledge, they still hang around, and you'll see pretty big teenage-sized birds on the ground for a couple of weeks after fledging, waiting for their parents to feed them. And, you don't really have to worry about cats, because what cat in its right mind would want to bother that? So they don't have any real predators. I would say that their biggest problem is, the loss of habitat. And sometimes crows will get up in nests. They're pretty aggressive, and crows could eat the eggs. And historically, we were a pretty big predator, because back in the day with the hat industry, I don't know if you guys know this, but Audubon came into being to protect the snowy egrets from having their plumes used in hats, and it was the same for the yellow-crowned night heron. So typically the herons live to be about 6 years old, which isn't that old. But if you come to the estuary, be sure to go on the North McCoy Trail right by the bridge. Look on either side of it, and you'll see them feeding, or up in those Torrey pines right next to the apartments. They're also over at the park there on IB Boulevard and 4th. Hi, Ro and Helen, and who else did I see? Anne. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Did anybody have any questions about the yellow-crowned night herons? We also have the black crown here, and of course both egrets. Once in a while we'll have a little blue heron. Most of the great blue herons, they like to hang out in the bay more than here. So, but typically you can see them here all the time. Apparently they just don't fancy this tide. So, okay, well that's it. That's all I've got for today. Next week, Maria will be talking about the verbena, the verbena mentifolia. So stay tuned for that. Maria's much better than me at working the camera. I can never, I don't know, the reflection is so bright that I can't even see what I'm trying to show you. So I think I'm gonna stick with the birds. Anyway, have a good day. It's really pretty out today. See you next week. Hi, Donna. Bye, everybody.